It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Dr. Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert, the title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. Sean, you have a special message for the listeners?
Hey, John, I just wanted to mention for all the parents and students who are listening to this great podcast, we have a really special offer only for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast for Prep Expert. So if your student is going to be taking an online SAT, ACT, PSAT course anytime soon, or is looking for one-on-one tutoring with top 1% tutors, head over to prepexpert.com. We offer live online courses for every college admissions exam. On top of that, we have the best score guarantees, best curriculum, and best instructors in the test prep industry. And just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast, you can get 20% off any online SAT or PSAT or ACT course, as well as one-on-one tutoring. So you can get 20% off. Just make sure you use the promo code College Talk. That's one word, College Talk, and you'll get 20% off just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast. And I hope you guys can use that to your advantage, save a bunch of money at prepexpert.com.
Thank you so much, Sean. And to everyone out there, once again, that promo code is College Talk. That's one word, College Talk. Thank you all, and best wishes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you, Sarah Butler, who's the Assistant Dean of Admission in the Office of Admission and Financial Aid at Sewanee. Now, Sarah, I'm so grateful that you're here. I got an email from a subscriber who said, hey, could we get Sewanee on the podcast? I said, well, I'll definitely send the invite. And Sarah immediately said yes. And here we are. So, Sarah, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great. And thank you so much for having me. And I accepted the invitation without even knowing that I was requested. So very exciting.
You absolutely were. And I'm excited to have you as well. So a shout out to that listener. But Sarah, let's get right to it. We want to hear all about Sewanee. So let's start by asking you to give a broad overview. How would you describe Sewanee academically, socially, and geographically? And what distinguishes Sewanee from other liberal arts colleges, especially in the South?
Great way to start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the basics about Sewanee, especially because I think a lot of people in the Northeast aren't very familiar with us. So I think it's good to know just a little bit about who we are. So we are a liberal arts school that is located in southeastern Tennessee between Nashville and Chattanooga on the top of the Cumberland Plateau. So I always like to tell people if you need a big city fix, we have Chattanooga, which is 45 minutes away. Nashville is an hour and 15 minutes away. Huntsville is also an hour away. And then Atlanta is 2.5 hours away. So there are lots of big cities that are close to us, but we're a college that's kind of nestled into a tiny little town. I like to tell people it's kind of like going to school in the middle of a national park. We have about 1,600 students from 44 states and 31 different countries. We have 38 majors and 44 minors. We're going to offer many similar things that other liberal arts schools or other small schools might offer students. Interesting things inside of the classroom, small classroom size, interesting things outside of the classroom. But, when I'm talking to a student who isn't very familiar or even being familiar with Sewanee, some things that I like to kind of talk about that are a little bit different about us that really stand out there's three things. One of them is, have you been to Sewanee at all?
I have not. I haven't had the pleasure.
Okay. Well, we'll have to get you down here so you can see it.
Absolutely.
But I think one thing that is a big surprise for people when they come here is that it's a really, really beautiful campus. As I mentioned before, it's kind of like going to the school in the middle of a national park. And so we are the second largest campus in the United States. We have 13,000 acres. If you're curious about the largest campus, it's actually Berry College in Rome, Georgia. I don't know if you've ever spoken to them, but I believe they have 24,000 acres. I could be wrong. So they're the biggest by far. But we have 14 lakes, 15 caves, over 65 miles of trails. So if you enjoy being outside, it's a wonderful place to be. We also have 13 environmental study programs. So if you have an interest in geology, forestry, natural resources, sustainability, it's a really good place to consider because not only are you being taught by the experts, but you also have this land that you can use as a living laboratory. So that's pretty cool. Um, Another thing that's really unique is that the town of Sewanee is 3,500 people, including the student body. So the college is the town. So much so that our vice chancellor, which is our school's president, is also the mayor of Sewanee. So, sometimes he might be in the 4th of July parade or he might be leading a community council meeting. Our fire department is staffed by students along with community members. Anywhere you go in town, there are going to be students. There are students that are working at the restaurants. There are students that are working at the elementary school and the middle and the high school, and they're coaching things and they're working at the coffee shop. And so if you are a student or you know a student who really likes to be actively engaged in a community, then Sewanee could be a good place to consider. The last thing is that we have a lot of traditions, and I know that every school has traditions. And so, we may not be all that different, but we have some interesting traditions. I won't name them all for you right now. But one of them is that we have something called the Order of the Gown. So if you achieve a certain GPA over two consecutive semesters, then you are inducted into a student governing body called the Order of the Gown. And this gives you the privilege of wearing an academic gown to class. So if you were to come here in the fall, it might have this kind of Hogwarts vibe, people wearing academic gowns around, and it just kind of provides a festive atmosphere. I do think that, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, more people wore the gowns than they do now, but our tour guides wear gowns, seniors wear gowns, students will wear gowns when they're going in and sitting down and taking an exam. So it's just something that's a little bit unique about us.
Well, I love that story, the Order of the Gowns. And of course, you're located in the southeast corner of Tennessee, not too far from Chattanooga and Nashville, which of course are thriving cities. You're a small liberal arts school with 1,600 students on 13,000 acres, which is tremendous. And by the way, Sarah, as part of my research, since I haven't been to Sewanee, I was watching some videos on YouTube, and it was amazing to see your team talking to your incoming students about dining options, about accommodations in the dorms and the suites that you have. So it just resonated to me that you guys are so pro student. And so in terms of the student experience, how would you characterize the Sewanee, again, student experience, both inside and outside of your classrooms? And what kinds of students tend to thrive at Sewanee in terms of intellectual curiosity, campus involvement, and fit with the university's culture?
Yeah, another really great question. I have been working at Sewanee for 19 years. My husband graduated from Sewanee, and then I have two children that graduated from Sewanee, one in 2020 and one in 2023. And so I've had a lot of opportunity to kind of sit back and look at students that have thrived here and students who have maybe it's not the right fit for them. And so I would say that overall, the vibe of the student body is not a competitive one. It's a collaborative one. I think that there are a lot of colleges where you go and people kind of thrive on that competitive atmosphere. And here it is very important to have that friendly, collaborative atmosphere. I think that students go out of their way to be friendly. I had a student who visited from New York one year, and he wrote an essay, and he talked about his visit, and he said, I visited campus and somebody said hello to me. I was stunned. And so it is a very friendly place, and it is very different from Other places, when I go to a city, it's weird because I'm so addicted to going out and chatting with people and just feeling comfortable talking to anybody that I forget that you can't do that everywhere. And so, I tell people when you come to visit, just have an open mind and understand that that's what the culture is. And I also think that it's a work hard, play hard culture. The students work really hard here, but they are also really, really engaged outside of the classroom. It may be that they're an athlete, it may be that they're in the university choir, or they're big into music, or they're participating in Greek life. But, I think I was happy to see as a parent that students go to class, and in between classes you're going to the library so you can get your work done, and you can have your weekend to yourself. And then on Sunday afternoon it's packed, so everybody's getting their work done, and then they're going out and having a good time at night and on the weekends.
Well, I love how you describe that Sewanee is definitely a collaborative atmosphere that is extremely friendly and non-competitive, which to your point is not the case anywhere and everywhere. So we appreciate the entire overview. Thank you so much. And of course, our listeners really want to pull the curtain back on the admissions office and hear a little bit about that admissions process. In other words, when they hit submit, what happens on the other end with those applications? So can you walk us through Sewanee's admissions review process and how holistic it is, and what are the most important elements you're looking for when reviewing those student applications?
Yeah, I am extremely grateful that we are a school that is able to read applications holistically. A student will submit their application. You apply to Swanee through the Common Application, and I think it is good to note that there's no application fee to apply to Swanee, and there's no supplemental essay, which is also really nice. We know that senior year is a challenging time. It's super busy. We get the information that we need with everything that's on the Common App. So the Common App will rest in our system, and it will wait for all the other pieces of the puzzle, the high school transcript, the recommendations, anything else that you may want to submit. And then your admission counselor will read the application. The most important thing that we're looking at in the application is the high school transcript. What is the school that you're attending? What are the classes that you're taking? What are the grades that you have? And, going back to that holistic process, the great thing is that if there is a bump on the road, if there is, I've torn my ACL, or, my grandmother died and it really hit me hard. If there are some grades, a semester, a year, that have been challenging, then we are looking for redemption, and we are open to that redemption. So if you have proven that you've had some challenges, but you've been able to get up and dust off, and get back to work, then we're very pleased with that. We don't require, like I said, we don't require any extra essays, but we are looking at that essay that you have written from the Common App. We're looking at the recommendations from your teacher and your counselor. And we're kind of taking all of that and seeing if Swanee is a good fit for you. So, that's where those extracurriculars come into place. We're looking to see, based on what you're doing and what you like, what does Swanee have to offer you to make you happy and fulfilled? And what is it that you have to offer Swanee to make it the community that it is?
Well, we really appreciate that overview, and I definitely want to unpackage it, but mention a couple of things. Number one, there's no application fee, there's no supplemental essay, which is great. So, in terms of just unpackaging the overall review, I was curious for students applying through early decision or even early action. Are there any notable differences in how applications are reviewed compared to regular decision? And what advice would you give to students considering an early application to Sewanee?
So, about a third of our students apply early decision. And just in case you're not sure what early decision is, it's around where that Swanee is the best school for you. If you are accepted into Swanee, then you will put down your deposit and you will become a Swanee student. About a third of our students are early decision candidates. And then I would say probably about 50% of our students are early action. This means that you apply. You apply in by December 1st. You find out in January, but you don't need to make a decision until May 1st. And then the rest of them are in our regular decision round. It's usually most of the people are they have their act together and they're doing early decision and early action. And not to say that people who are applying regular decision don't have their act together. It's just that they may be doing other things. They may be fall athletes. They may have not gotten into their first choice schools. And so we just don't have as many in the regular decision round. I would say that the gates are a little bit wider in terms of our academic profile if you are applying early decision. And that is because people who are applying early decision to Sewanee know it is a good fit for them. And so we have seen success with people who may have been a little bit below our mid-range with the GPA or below the mid-range with the ACT or the SAT, but they're such a good fit that it's worth the risk of taking a student who is a little bit below the academic profile. Our retention rate is much higher for students who have applied early decision than other rounds. It's still high for the other ones, but the early decision retention rate is extremely high. And so, my advice is, I think if you have an idea about where you want to go to school, I've seen a lot of people that are going through the college search process and they really just are at sea and don't know which school is the best fit for them. So if you find a school and you absolutely love it, early decision is a great option.
Yeah, it's definitely a great option. And it's also the best way to demonstrate your interest in a college because if, in fact, you're admitted, you're saying, hey, I'm coming. As you mentioned, it is a binding agreement. So, again, a third of the students are applying ED, 50% are going early action, which is not binding. And then, of course, the rest make up the regular decision round. So, we appreciate that. And again, I want to unpackage further the overall review. Sarah, when evaluating GPAs and coursework, does Sewanee recalculate GPAs or rely on what's reported on the transcript? And how do you weigh honors, AP, IB, or even dual enrollment courses within each student's academic context?
Most GPAs that we receive are weighted. Schools have put the weighted GPA on the transcript, which reflects the coursework in the APs and the IBs and the honors classes. If we do have a school that doesn't weight it, then we do have a system that knows the high school quality and it is factored into kind of the big picture when we're evaluating admission and we're evaluating merit-based aid. So, it's our job as admission counselors to know, okay, this student may have a 2.9, but they're going to the most selective school in their state. And so the high school quality is extremely high, and they're not going to get knocked for having a lower GPA than somebody who has submitted it with a weighted GPA. So we're kind of aware of the context of where the student is coming from. We do accept dual enrollment courses. They do have to be evaluated by the registrar because while we also accept AP credit, we accept 4s and 5s. That is a standardized curriculum. And so we know what to expect when somebody receives a 4 or a 5 on an AP exam. But with the dual enrollment, there's a variety of programs. And so those must be evaluated by the registrar.
Well, we appreciate that. And I love that you talked about evaluating students based on the context of their high school. So the GPA alone is not necessarily, as in the example that you shared, it's not necessarily the end all. You do look at the context of their high school. If it's the most rigorous school in their state and they have a certain GPA, you may take that into consideration, again, using the context of where the student is coming from. Now, with your test optional policy, how should students decide whether or not to submit standardized test scores as part of their overall application?
So our mid-range for the ACT is 28 to 32. So if you have a score within that range, I would just recommend submitting that. If you have a 27 and you have a 4.0, you can talk to your admission counselor and they can kind of guide you to the best choice for you. But I would say generally, if you're in that mid range, that makes the most sense.
Well, that's great advice. Just looking at the mid range. And if, again, you fall in that mid range or higher students, obviously it's a good idea to submit the standardized test to add just another piece of your overall application. Now, how do essays and letters of recommendation factor into Sewanee's application process? And are there certain qualities you hope to see reflected in these more narrative components?
So I would say that the GPA and the test scores are giving us an idea of who you are, but the recommendations and the essay really kind of give us an idea of who you are and how you're going to fit into our campus. And so whenever I'm talking to a student about what is a good essay topic, my advice is always when I'm reading an application and I see the extracurriculars, you're a lacrosse player, and then in the summer you teach a lacrosse camp, and you repair lacrosse sticks in your free time, and it's lacrosse, and your recommendations are going to mention lacrosse. I'm always so excited when the essay isn't about lacrosse. It's an opportunity for you to share something about yourself that is different from what is on the Common App. And so I think a lot of people don't take advantage of that. I think that it is something to keep in mind no matter what school you're applying to, but especially if you're applying to really selective schools, you want to keep giving the admission representative as much information about you as possible. So don't miss out on that opportunity to share things that may be a little bit different than information that we've already received.
Well, I think that's tremendous advice. And it's a reminder to students and their families that you need to be aware of each component of the overall application, what they are meant to convey, how they need to complement each other, but also build upon the next. So I love, love, love your example about the lacrosse player who plays lacrosse, fixes lacrosse sticks, does a summer camp for lacrosse, reads, writes, and does everything about lacrosse, and then chooses to write about lacrosse in their personal statement. Probably not adding too much to their overall application when the activity sheet is all about lacrosse and then the personal statement is about the same topic. So it's just a good example of students to remember each part has to complement each other while building upon the next and not necessarily repeating the same thing throughout. Now, earlier we talked briefly about demonstrating your interests and how I gave the example of early decision probably being the number one way to demonstrate your interest in a university. So how does demonstrated interest factor into Sewanee's admissions process, if at all? And are there particular ways students can engage through visits, interviews, or virtual events that might influence how their application is reviewed?
Sewanee is a school that considers demonstrated interest. As you mentioned, early decision is the best way to demonstrate your interest. I don't think we've had any students who have applied early decision that haven't visited, so they know what they're getting into. And I know I've talked to a lot of students who are very intrigued by Sewanee because they found it on the internet and they've looked through the website and they've looked at the videos and they've had some conversations with counselors over Zoom or the phone. But they haven't been to campus, and so they're not ready to do that early decision, and I completely understand. And so, we offer a lot of opportunities for students who are from places that are a little bit farther away. Looking at colleges in different parts of the country can certainly be a challenge in terms of visiting them. And so counselors will come and visit different areas. So hopefully an admission counselor will be coming to an area near you. If not, there are opportunities to do Zoom calls. There are opportunities to do phone calls. There are opportunities to show your interest in some of the virtual events that we offer. So there are definitely ways to kind of show your interest if you want to let us know that you seriously are interested. Because I would say with early decision, the interest is clear. With early action, we do look at interest, but in regular decision, we're really looking at interest because every school is trying to kind of look at applications and look at students who are likely to enroll, because we're all trying to increase selectivity. And so if you have applied regular decision and you have shown absolutely no interest, it could be a disadvantage to your application.
Well, Sarah, that was a great answer. And I really appreciate the fact that you were talking about how Sewanee is indeed tracking demonstrated interest. Once again, we talked about early decision being the number one way to showcase your demonstrated interest. But it really is a lesson to all students and families, regardless if a college or university says that they track demonstrated interest as part of their application review. In other words, whether or not they use it in their application review, it's important to do the things under the umbrella of demonstrating your interest so that you can do your own research and truly figure out if indeed the school is the right fit for you. So, visiting, talking to counselors, participating in the virtual events, and all of the other things that schools offer, again, very important to engage in those things, regardless if they track it or not, so that you could determine for yourself if that school is in fact the right fit for you. Now, Sarah, another thing that comes up a lot in the podcast episodes are these things called institutional priorities. So,
Mhm.
how large is your incoming first year class, and how do institutional priorities like geographic diversity or in state versus out of state balance shape Sewanee's enrollment strategy from year to year?
Our class this year is 460 students and 28 transfers. Luckily, the institutional priorities, we don't have to worry about them as much in terms of shaping the class. Our goal is to maintain relationships with our feeder schools. Our goal is we are Division III school, and so we have 24 varsity sports, and we have to make sure that we have people that are on those teams. And then our goal is yes, we would like to have more out of state representation. So, we will go to New York, we will go to California, we will go to different states to try to introduce Sewanee to other people. But, I've been in a lot of case studies where it is the institutional priorities are that's how the whole class is shaped. And it isn't as specific with us.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. And this has been a phenomenal conversation. Before getting to the end of the conversation, Sarah, I always like to ask, is there a question that I didn't ask you today that you wish I had? Or throughout this conversation, is there a topic that you want to share with us that simply just didn't come up during our conversation?
Well, I mean, I would just say not. I think your questions were fantastic, and I just want to reiterate. I may have said this earlier, but if you are considering Sewanee, if you're looking online, if the information intrigues you, I really do feel like this is the kind of place that you have to visit to understand. I wish I had a quarter. I don't even need to say a dollar. If I wish I had a quarter for every single person that said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had no idea that this was here." So, picture a beautiful, quaint town. You live on Long Island, right? There's lots of beautiful,
Yes.
quaint towns there. Well, imagine this, beautiful, quaint town has the energy and excitement of 1,600 college students and, the activities that go along with it. We just have heard over and over, what an undiscovered gem, what an undiscovered gem. And I am grateful that, it hasn't been completely discovered, because then, it would be overrun and obscenely selective. And I think that's part of Sewanee's charm, is that you have the possibility of getting into it. It's this amazing school. Uh, but it is also very frustrating because it is an amazing school and people don't know about it.
Understood, understood. And I really appreciate all that you're saying. And it points to the importance of visiting the campus. There is no way that you could get the feel of the campus and even the surrounding area without physically being there. There's a lot of great virtual programs, there's all kinds of tours with these 360 views with goggles. There's great things out there, but nothing replaces actually being there, feeling the sense that you get when you're on campus, looking at the surrounding area. And so, students, if you can't visit before applying, you definitely owe it to yourself to visit before matriculating for sure. So again, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Unfortunately, it does bring us to that last question, which is, what are your top 3 pieces of advice? And you've given so many, but what are your top 3 pieces of advice for students and their families who are preparing for the college admissions process?
I would say my first piece of advice is have an open mind. This is something that's going to be helpful to you your whole life, to just go into things with an open mind. You may have always thought that you were going to go to University of Wisconsin and you've had your Bucky Badger t-shirt since you were 3 years old. But then your high school counselor says, well, I think you'd be a really good fit for Bard. And you're like, Bard? Why would I want to go to Bard? But your college counselor knows who you are and knows where you might be a good fit, and that maybe a big school isn't the best fit for you. So maybe you should go and just take a look at it. And I'm not saying that you have to go to Bard, but I'm saying that it's very good to go in with an open mind. Another thing is, this is kind of going to be a crazy year. And when, I am an admission counselor and I have 2 children that went through this process, and I'm not saying that I did what I'm going to tell you to do. But it is very helpful to kind of sit down, especially this is a perfect time of year, and make a plan of action about how you're going to approach this. When are you going to start your applications? How many applications are you going to send out? What schools are you going to visit? Getting all of that when are you going to meet with the counselor? Have a plan of action, and then maybe set up a time just once a week to talk about it, because it can be super aggravating for everybody involved if you're talking about it all the time. But if you have, after Sunday dinner, we're going to talk about this for 15 minutes and just get an update, then that can kind of alleviate some stress in the household. And then the last thing is, one of the things that kind of surprised me about watching my own kids go through the college search, because everybody that comes through the admission office at Sewanee when they're visiting, they're on their best behavior. Everybody's polite and nice. And so you don't see the behind the scenes attitudes. But I saw there were a couple of times where my daughter and her friends were hanging out, and one of them would say, well, I'm thinking about applying to this school. And the friends would say, what? Why are you applying to that school? And they would judge that person for the school they were applying to. And, I had to say to them, hey, maybe that school isn't the best fit for you, but, it's already a stressful time. So you don't want to make your friends stressed out by thinking that you don't think that that school is good. So a school that may not be the best thing for you may be a great fit for your friend. And it's just a time where we all just need to be nice to each other. We all need to be supportive of each other. And no matter what school anyone is looking at.
Well, it's always a time to be nice and supportive of each other, but also in this reflective process called the college admissions process, it really is, students, about finding what is true, near and dear to yourself. And with over 4,000 colleges and universities in the country alone, there are many schools that are the right fit for you, but not every school is the right fit for you. So it's not about where your friend is going, where your cousin went, by the way, where your parents went. You really have to be true to yourself, working with your family, of course, to find that right fit for you. So I love your advice about having an open mind, because I think it's so important to be honest to yourself throughout this process, and hopefully, avoid transferring if you end up in a school where you didn't do your research and you find out that, this isn't the right fit for me. So take your time, work with your family, have an open mind, visit if you can. And this has been a phenomenal conversation. Sarah, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I'm so glad that listener reached out and say, hey, get Sewanee on the podcast. Here we are. So thank you for your time and your expertise. You were awesome.
Well, thank you. This was so exciting.
And well, we were definitely equally as excited to be here with you. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care all, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.